I like the fast deposits. I like the fast withdrawals.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about Nitrogen Sports Poker. That's the online Bitcoin-only poker site where it's lightning fast, 10 to 20 minutes usually to get your money in and out of there.
I mean, getting your money out that fast is crazy and
amazing.
awesome. Use the link in the description of this video when you sign up for Nitrogen for access to exclusive Poker Guys free rolls and sit and goes that we play in.
It's awesome. We'll see you there.
Somehow, and we're lucky, the Aussie Millions has produced a ton of incredible heads-up hands in recent years.
Yeah.
It always seems to get real wacky in the heads-up portion, and it's no different this time in the 100K super high roller.
Why is someone always making a big play?
I don't know. Maybe it's that
crazy.
Australian, like the ozone layer thing.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
has to do
also
with-
the way the water goes. Anyway,
Yeah.
So today we've got Mike Watson, hugely accomplished, super high roller player, against Nick Petrangelo, hugely accomplished, big time super high roller player. They're heads up for all the money in the Aussie super high roller.
And it's a super cool hand, and it was suggested by Pedro Almeida. You know what to do. Suggest on Twitter, include a YouTube link.
Timestamp it also. Don't
do
be
that.
lame.
Yeah.
We're going to break down this hand as we go, so get ready for some analysis.
One bet's 30.
Two pretty reasonable hands here. Mike goes ahead and raises the button. And Nick's going to defend the big blind with his Jack-8 offsuit.
Check. 2 checks.
Top pair here for Petrangelo. Gut shot to the 3-ball for Mike Watson.
1 checks.
Mike turns a double gut shot now. A 6 or a 3 would both make him a
Bet's
straight.
45.
Petrangelo, though, goes ahead and fires it out here. An ace would also make Mike Watson the best hand.
One calls 45.
Well, I know one thing about this hand. These two guys are really bringing the party. They look like 4-year-olds at a birthday party when the cake just got brought out. Look at the excitement on their faces. But they are elite, and that's why this is an important hand. And I know not a lot has happened yet, but it's going to get really interesting.
It absolutely is. And let's talk about what's happened so far, because this is going to play into some of the decisions that happen later in the hand that you haven't seen yet. So first of all, it goes check, check on the flop. Of course, we'd expect Nick Petrangelo to check.
Yeah.
He's playing in flow. That makes sense. Now, Mike Watson checks also, and it's kind of interesting, right? He's generally checking here for one of two reasons, we think. One is because this is the kind of board Mike Watson is going to check with his entire range, which
Like
is very
even
possible.
top set. Even top set.
Right,
you know?
he might just check the whole thing here, and that's totally reasonable. Or he might be checking showdownable hands that aren't particularly strong,
Right.
like ace highs, like small, medium pair type hands, things like that. Hands that can't really deal with like a big raise here or anything
Right.
like that, but don't mind getting to showdown or are willing to put in chips later, but want to do some pot control.
Right, that's the more traditional reason. Usually,
Yeah.
players will be checking back with hands that they don't really want a ton of action with, but think can win in the end. So you'd expect him to bet his jack highs and his bad hands like that, also his strong hands. But these guys are super elite. They're in this leveling war, so it's possible that Watson has to, in order to not be so readable by Petrangelo, check boards like this the entire time, no matter what his holding is.
I mean, it's not crazy, and also their stack sizes are such that if Watson wants to be able to get it all in, he potentially could, if Nick bets turn and river and Watson decides to race, he could in theory have about the right stack size to be able to move in on the river.
That's possible,
anyway.
but this isn't the type of hand he wants to do that with.
Well, not yet.
No.
Anyway, but now he's double gutted, by the way, on this turn.
Yeah,
so
he
it's
is.
not so bad.
And he has an interesting decision once Petrangelo bets, but let's talk about Petrangelo's bet for a second,
Yeah.
because it's 75% of pot, which is bigger than you usually see in spots like this. Why do you think that is?
I think there's two main reasons. Number one is, well, we just said actually, right, that a lot of the times Mike Watson is going to have a showdownable hand here, maybe all the time.
Maybe.
So as Nick Petrangelo, you'd expect to get called most of the time on this turn. That's number one, and that's a big one, right? Number two is Nicky Petrangelo. He loves to bet. He's very aggressive.
Yeah,
No, really, he is.
He is
though.
very aggressive. He's known as an aggressive player. And his sizing is bigger than most of the players who are elite like him.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is because so many of these guys play these pot control games, and Mike Watson is one of these guys. And Petrangelo is trying to combat that, and bigger sizing is one way to do that. And now Watson has his decision, because he is double gutted. He could raise.
He could raise, but there's a good reason not to. This is a pretty wet board with a lot of draws, and Nick might be betting not just his top pairs and not just his pretty good hands, his really bad hands too, his air and things like that, especially with this kind of sizing, although I would guess Nicky generally sizes it this way.
There's another reason. We don't want to get 3-bet shoved on by a draw that's currently losing to us, like a diamond draw. That would be no fun because we have to fold then.
And this comes back to the ultimate point, which is we have a showdownable hand. We don't have to raise this. We're heads up. Ace high really might be good now and on the river. We have to consider calling a bet on the river depending on what the river is and how much Nicky bets.
Right, so let's get ready for some river fireworks.
Here we go.
Petrangelo improves here to 2 pair. Mike Watson with just ace high. Backdoor diamonds did get there as well.
1 bet 150.
150 on the river. Going to be a tough spot for Mike to call. Too many hands he loses to. To call a full pot size bet here. I mean, maybe he could find a bluff raise or something, but well, he's not just instantly folding, but I mean, hearts missed. Besides that, though, like
10 seconds. Sir.
6-4 gets there. Wait, he's not just instantly letting this one go.
4, 3.
All in. What?
Sorry,
wow.
All in. Players all in.
Wow, Mike Watson has moved all in here on the river. And Petrangelo, if he calls, this tournament is over. Petrangelo has top 2 pair. But he's got to be afraid of the backdoor flush or one of the straights. And I'm not sure if Petrangelo has a time bank chip left. I am doing not like this right now, by the way. As soon as he shoves, what? I mean, this is a crazy bluff. Will it work? If Petrangelo, he does have 1 time bank chip left, and this would be a good time to use it. Petrangelo could end this match right now. Flop went check, check. Nick bet. Oh, Nick calls. That's it. It's over. Nick Petrangelo wins the heads-up match.
Man, this is the kind of river that we make breakdowns for.
That was cool.
This is what I'm talking about, because so often you see plays like this and they're amateurs making, and you just think these are terrible plays. But these are 2 of the best players in the world playing for a huge amount of money. They've earned their spots here. There's a lot more to this than just, you know, I bet call off with 2 pair in this.
I know we're going to get a ton of comments on this video that are like, you guys are just doing this because they're pros and you just say they're idiots if it was anybody else. And you're kind of right, but they have earned the credit. So what we have to do, because they've earned that credit, is do a deep dive and try to figure out exactly what happened here, because what the hell just happened?
Okay, well, let's start with the easy part.
Okay.
Nick Petrangelo makes top 2 on the river and bets big.
I mean, that's not so easy, because he's polarizing himself with a hand on a card that seems like maybe this shouldn't be part of your North Pole here. It's maybe not good enough.
It is questionable, and this actually goes back to our talk about the flop play. And is Mike Watson checking back showdownable hands, or is he checking back his entire range here? If he's checking back only showdownable hands, now Mike Watson can't have 9-10. But if he's checking back his whole range, Mike Watson can have anything.
Yeah, which is scary for Nick Petrangelo when he's betting top 2 pair when the whitest card in the deck comes on the river. Yeah. It's probably the whitest card in the deck, right?
It's a very wet card for sure.
So betting 150K into 150K usually signifies I have a polarized range here and my North Pole is really good hands, probably 9-10 or better in this situation, maybe even a flush or better when he bets this big. But Nick Petrangelo is so aggressive that I guess he thinks he needs to include top 2 because he gets called a lot more often than other people.
I think that's probably right. Like, he's more likely to get heroed than most people. And heads up, you can get called by so many hands, right? In theory, anyway.
So that should make it easy for him to fold, by the way, later on. But we're going to talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
So now Mike Watson does this, which...
Hello.
What?
Welcome to
Crazy Land?
Mordor.
Some sort of crazy land. Now, I would expect Watson to show up with the ace of diamonds in his hand
Yeah.
if this was a more traditional hand that was playing out and you decided to bluff here. But would you decide to bluff over the pot-sized river bet anyway?
I mean, if you had ace 10 with the ace of diamonds or ace 9 with the ace of diamonds, that's pretty sweet. You block the nut straight and the nut flush. It's about as good a setup as you could ever hope for to move in. But besides that, maybe the ace of diamonds alone is enough too. That's fine. But it's a big bet by Pietrangelo. And by the way, as Watson, we have almost 50 blinds. We don't have to do this.
You know what else
The pot
we
is
have?
still kind of small. What?
We have no blockers.
That is correct.
We have 0 blockers, and we're moving in like we have a blocker or the nuts, essentially, which is interesting. So we came to some theories on our podcast,
Yes,
and we
we
have a
did.
theory as to why Mike Watson feels like he can do this without a blocker. And it has a lot to do with the pre-flop play of Nick Pietrangelo.
So we think it's got to be very likely that Nick Pietrangelo is 3-betting either all of his suited aces or most of his suited aces.
Yeah.
And maybe also, by the way, some of his non-suited aces.
Sure.
Certainly some of the big ones. But almost all of his suited aces may just be 3-bets, and Mike Watson may know that. So he can effectively eliminate the nut flush from Pietrangelo's range.
Yeah.
Which that means you basically have the nut blocker in your hand, even though you don't.
I mean, that's a stretch,
Yes,
but
it
that's
is.
all we got, and this guy is really, really good. He's final tabling huge events all the time.
Against
he
the
knows
best
what he's
players.
doing.
Yeah.
He's not just spewing and blowing up his tournament for no reason.
We think.
So we think that has to factor in there a little
Yeah.
bit somehow. So he thinks he has the effective blocker, even though he doesn't really have a blocker, right?
That's our working theory. We
Okay.
think it's at least pretty good sounding.
Okay, but so now Nick Pietrangelo should fold, right? Because he
I
bet
mean-
pot. Let's remember, he bet pot. That means he polarized his range. When you polarize your range and your opponent shoves a large amount over that, almost 50 blinds, it's time to fold when we have the very, very bottom end of our North Pole here, right?
Well, there's 2 reasons not to fold if you're Nick Pietrangelo.
Okay.
Number 1 is you're Nicky Pietrangelo, baby, and you
don't-
bet
You don't
big-
play no fools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't suffer no fools. You don't play no fools. Which, by the way, then is a compliment to Mike Watts. If you're not playing
Yeah.
fools, you're only playing smart people. So well done, Mike. But it means that you probably make a lot of river bets, a lot of big river bets, and you're used to people playing back at you. And so you know you have to call with more hands than a traditional player might because people are going to be much more apt to bluff you. That's number 1.
But 2 pair here?
I mean, if we had a straight, we'd call right away, right?
I don't know. Would we?
We would call. How about that?
Would
Maybe
we? Against a normal player?
Heads up?
I mean, come on.
I don't know.
He's got a flush or nothing,
Maybe
right?
not. Maybe not. Okay,
Yeah.
no, he has a flush or nothing. You're right. Because I don't think Sir Watts has 9-10 in his
No.
range here. I don't think that makes any sense. I agree with you there. But the other thing Nick can know is this. Maybe Nick also knows that Mike knows that Nick would only be 3-betting suited aces, which means he knows that Mike is likely to move in a spot like this rather than not because Mike knows that Nick can't have the nuts here.
Right, and that makes a ton of sense then. Because
wacky.
if Nick knows that Mike is pretending that he has a blocker because he knows about Nick's range, and Nick is 1 level past that, that means we have so many combos of bluffs versus just flushes for the value, and we can call even though our hand seems like garbage in this situation.
Agreed. Also, 2 other things. Number 1 is Nick Pietrangelo has the 8 of diamonds in his hand that does block some flushes at least.
Yeah.
That Mike can have. Not a lot, but some, and that's useful. Right?
Yeah,
Also, if Mike had a big draw on the turn, he might have raised.
he might have.
He might not have because it was a big bet.
Yeah.
But he might have raised. So we can knock out at least some combos of some of the big draws also, especially the nut flush. You might think maybe he doesn't have to have the nut flush.
Maybe.
Because he'd be more likely to raise that than not. So Nicky P puts it all in the hopper, and ultimately some balls shoot up, and bam, he makes the call.
He makes the call, and I guess it just has to be a leveling war.
Yeah.
That's all we got. Eviscerate us. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's your chance, people. Tell us we're idiots. Tell us we're morons. We admit it's possible we're wrong about this one. We did a lot of assumptions about what these guys were thinking and why they made the choices we make. Those are the only things we could come up with other than saying this seems like bad plays. But we don't think it is bad.
We don't.
To be clear, we actually think this probably is what's going on or some version of this leveling war anyway. But let us know what you think in the comments. Do you like these plays? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree strongly? We're going to respond to our favorite ones right up here. If there's nothing to click on, it's coming soon.
Now, that was one of those awesome heads-up hands from the Aussie Millions.
Yes.
We've done plenty of those along with other Aussie Millions hands. You're going to want to check those out, right? I mean, right up there. And also, you don't have to actually go to Australia and risk all the skin cancer and all that stuff.
Which is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one of all the Aussie Millions hands is How to Win the Aussie Millions, which is where they're heads up for the title.
It's also very instructive.
Oh, man.
It's how you win the Aussie Millions.
I mean, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
So anyway,
You want to learn that, right?
I mean, I want to learn.
Yeah.
That. There's a few other really good hands in there too, for sure. So check that out. Also, check out our podcast where we go into super detail about this. Man, do we talk about everything. We talked about the checks on the flop. We talked about Mike deciding to only call the turn and the pros and cons of that. We got super deep into figuring out basically why and how can Nicky bet this much, Mike move in, and Nick call it. Does that make sense? And you can sort of hear our thought process and how we came to that in the podcast. It's called The Breakdown, presented by the Poker Guys. You can find it on any podcast app or iTunes or whatever. And if you like this video, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel.